Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I call the meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
Pledge
allegiance
allegiance
to the
to the
flag of
flag
the
of the United
United
States of
States
America
and
and to the republic
to the republic
for
which
which it
stands
stands,
one
one
nation
nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you very much. Second, could we have a roll call, please, Kim?
Trustee Benson,
Here.
Trustee Gunther,
Here.
Pro Tem Jackson,
Here.
Trustee Mead,
Present.
Trustee Pelfrey,
Here.
Trustee Varan,
Here.
President Arwar.
Here, thank you. Yeah. Okay, the next item on the agenda is public comments. Is there anybody out there want to make a public comment?
Yeah, so for anybody that might want to make a public comment, if you're on your smartphone or laptop, you can push the raise hand button and we will use that to then call on you. Or if you are calling in, you could push, I believe it's *9 on your phone, and that will also give us the raise hand item as well. And John, I see your hands up. I do have a separate item for Midwest Fest.
Okay.
Yeah, John, I have you unmuted there. Do you have something other than that, or if not,
No.
we'll just wait till we
No.
get to that, and then I'll let you get in for that.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. All right, I see. Okay, here we go. Kevin Conklin. You should be able to make a comment now. Probably have to unmute, but
Go ahead, Kevin.
There we go. Can you hear me?
yes.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Under Sheriff Kevin Conklin. I just wanted to step in and say hi. And I'm here from the Sheriff's Department if anybody has any questions of me. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Nope, that is it.
All right, we move on to the consent agenda. Any additions or deletions to the agenda? Anyone has any deletions or additions or deletion to the agenda? Anyone? Okay, Matt, I got a question for you, Matt. I want to talk
Sure.
about rental inspections. Where do I put it at? Under the communication?
Probably new business.
A new business? Okay, let's put E about rental inspections.
Okay. All right.
Okay, if there's no more additions or deletions to the agenda, I need a motion to approve the consent agenda as for additions or deletions to the agenda, approve of the agenda as amended. Minutes from the January 4th, 2021 regular meeting. Bills in a total of $188,474.61.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Trustee Mead, I need a second.
I'll second that.
Trustee Varan, all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carries. Okay, next item on the agenda, I will talk on communication, Midwest Festival 2021.
Yes. Okay, John.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm John Goodrich, representing Final Gravity tonight for Kevin Christensen. And we would just want to go over an overview of our plans for tentative plans for August the 28th to hold the Midwest Fest on the north end of Phelps Street only. Pretty much like we had it on the very first year. Not intending to have a national headliner band, just local bands from the Southwest Michigan area. invite back to the fest, the craft vendors, local food providers, and the breweries that we had before, pretty much the same number, 18 to 20, however that works out for whoever can come. Like I said, it would be pretty much like the very first Midwest Fest. So that's pretty much what I have.
Yeah, and I guess I'll chime in for a quick second. I did talk with, I hope you don't mind, John.
No,
I did talk
absolutely not.
with Kevin a little bit, and the one thing I guess I wanted to convey to the council from my conversations with Kevin is, and John alluded to this, is this is a tentative plan. I mean, obviously, the one thing that Kevin stressed pretty heavily was that we are still obviously a bit in uncharted waters as to what might happen with the ongoing pandemic with COVID,
Sure.
and then where we stand with the state rules on having events like this. Can we have everybody in there? And Kevin wanted me to reiterate to all of you guys that the plan would be that we would obviously comply with everything that is required of the state, and the goal would be that the event would be contingent upon having those permissions to be able to go forward with that. So the idea was, being that it's a little bit later on, but planning obviously has to start at some point, was to kind of give you guys a quick overview of what they're looking at in terms of a date, a rough overview of kind of what the event might look like, and then to then come back probably next month and see if you guys would be willing to do a tentative approval, assuming that everything is in line with state rules and things like that with respect to open spaces and COVID and things like that. So this was kind of just an initial informational stage for you guys.
Yeah.
Any questions from the council? Anyone with any questions? Matt, the only question I have, if you have a timeline, what if, say, like you said, you have a timeline, they have all these plans to invite all these vendors and all that, and at the end, and then at the last minute saying there is an issue with this COVID issue, would they be okay with that?
Yes, that's why we want to. Oh, sorry, man.
Yeah, you can go ahead, John. That's fine.
That's why we decided to go with local bands, so that we have that understanding with all of them, instead of putting out thousands of dollars for a national headliner like we did last year, or the year before, excuse me. And everybody that would be invited to come would be a contingency.
Okay, so they would understand that.
100%. It would be in the contract for everybody.
Okay, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, I move on to the next item on the agenda is officers' reports. Village attorney report, DPW report, chief report, clerk treasurer report, village manager report. Any council member, do you have any, or anybody will have any questions about these reports? Any questions about the reports? I got a question for the chief of police. Is Tom Vander with it? Is he there? Tom?
I'm here, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, Tom. I see in your report that you lost one of your part-time officers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, how many part-time officers, I lose count. I don't really pay attention because it's, how many full-time officers and part-time officers do we have now?
We have 5 full-timers, myself included,
Okay.
and I still have 2 others on my roster as part-timers.
Okay, so how many do you need? Is okay? Are you gonna replace the part-time officers just left, or you're okay with what you got?
Right now, I'm okay with what we have. Matt and I have had some discussions on
Okay.
moving forward in the future, but we have the 2 on my roster are Officer Rhonda DeLong and former Chief Dave McLeese. As part.
Okay, I'm just curious about what you guys. I really appreciate what you guys do. For police department. I thank you for what you guys do.
Thank you.
Anybody else has any? If there is no questions, Matt, you want to So folks, something about this cloud thing, you know, I mean, if there is no questions about your report, you can go just talk about this town cloud. You said you want to talk about in the, you know.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. I mean, I'll just touch on a couple things real quick. I mean, obviously with COVID, we're back open as of today, full staff and everybody. So we've been hoping to get there pretty soon. And I think today actually timed out really well in terms of the orders with the MDHHS. I mean, obviously we've been in the office periodically, and one of us was here every day, and we started, we came back last week to having everybody in the office. And so obviously the health and safety is a big issue. So we're still completing the checks and all of that, but we are back open again. So if anybody, has to come in to speak with the water office or myself or Kim, we're available for that. Sun Provisions, I'll touch on that real quick. They'll be opening probably within the next week or two. They'll actually be the first micro business to open in the entire state. So that was actually something surprising I learned when we went over and toured the facility. We wish them obviously success, and we'll see how all this plays out. But it looked like after getting a view of it, they've done a really good job of actually updating that building, and we can see all the work that went into taking basically a underutilized property and getting it to a use that actually will be productive. So give them credit for that. With the police CBA, that's finalized now, so that contract will run through February 29th of 2023. I think everybody, from our police officers to our union reps to the actual group themselves, the FOP Labor Council, everybody did a really good job of trying to come up with a new contract that actually made sense, was easy to understand for everybody, and I'm real happy with how everything turned out. One thing to note with the County Road 668 water projects, that's one of the things you'll see in the bills this month, obviously, was that amount. That actually will be, it was refunded. We just got the payment. We got to get it put into the computer because there's actually a little bit of money transferring we have to do, because some of that is for deposit and that goes to a different account. So we're working on that this week, but that $42,000 was reimbursed. And then to get to the town cloud stuff, I'll touch on that real quick. And I'm pretty excited to see what they might be doing. To be quite honest, for us, I think we had one very old ERP system we used probably about a decade ago. And, I think it was something that was done on like Microsoft Basic. Evelyn talked to me a little bit about it, and sounded like that was an interesting system, the way it worked. And then, of course, about a decade ago, we moved to BSNA, and, we've been with them for quite a while. And it's one of those things where everything works, but there's additional modules we actually have talked about adding that might be nice to have, that increases the cost of that service. And BSNA doesn't really have a cloud option, so all of it runs locally. And one of the things we saw with remote work when that was in effect over the course of the last year was that we couldn't actually work with BSNA just from a laptop at home. We had to actually connect to a separate server at the village to be able to do that. And so there are a few disadvantages that come up with BSNA. So Town Cloud, they're the ones that work with our agenda system, is actually right now working on a brand new ERP system that would actually take the place of everything that we do now. So it would be utility billing, cash receipting, there's options for budgeting, GL, payroll, timesheets, licensing and permits. So actually a lot of things that we've been talking about wanting to look at adding are going to be a part of this new system that comes out. And one of the cool things about it is this is actually going to all run right in the cloud. So you can open up a web browser and be able to log right in. There isn't any software that has to get installed on a computer or something. And one of the big things where that could help would be, say, for the chief of police, for example. Right now with budgeting, we do a lot more with paper, and Chief and I sit down and talk and try to figure things out. And when there's questions on, hey, what have we got left in the budget for this, or what is this account at? Because of the way the local system is set up, it usually means that Kim or I have to run reports and get those back over to Chief. And with something like this that would be more of a cloud-based system, we could actually have a couple different levels of users, and it'd be easy for the chief or for Jimmy or anybody to be able to not only log in and say, hey, what is my department at? But in the future, we could even start to look at expanding some of that budgeting process where, you know, the chief, Jimmy, Kim, et cetera, as we start looking out at this, departments could actually work on their own budgets, submit them to me. We could do feedback, and so I think there's a lot of things that this could really be a great system to look at down the line. They're trying to build it out so that it works for a community that has 500 people or a community that has 100,000 people. Now, there are a few caveats with it, and the one thing that I'm a bit concerned about, I think in the future, this could be something that'd be great for us. There are some modules that aren't completed yet. So like utility billing, for example, is something where they're going to have it and they're working on kind of the way that will work, but they don't actually have it yet. Kind of the argument they've made is that with something like this, you kind of want to do it in a phased rollout. So if you were going to say, implement something, you could start with say, okay, we're going to do cash receipting and general ledger, and then after that, we'll keep UB, we'll keep this, keep that, and then kind of do it more in a phased approach. So it's not you flip a switch and you have this whole new thing you got to figure out. So that's kind of the discussion they've had with me about it. And, we've had a really good relationship with them with the agenda software also. The other concern is that it is obviously an added cost. With them, what they did actually was they requested what our annual maintenance fees were with BS&A, and said basically if we could prepay a term, I think it was anywhere from 2 to 5 years. If we paid the exact same fees that we normally pay with BS&A, they would honor that same cost, even including all of the other modules that we don't have now, for that same fee. And then, you have the use of that software for an unlimited number of users for all the different modules for that time span. So it breaks out to about $3,000 a year to use the software. And like I said, they said, we could do a term from 2 years to 5 years. And the thing is I think with something like this is it's early enough that, some of the development is still in play. So that's a little bit concerning, because it's not completely finished, but they've given me a good overview of what it would be like. And I think that would be where they're heading is something that will be useful for us. I guess it's something where when you're looking at a migration of software like that, it's a pretty big undertaking. So my goal today was just to have a little conversation with you guys about how there is something out there that might actually give us a little bit more expanded capabilities, especially as we're going to talk about rental inspections later. There's a whole licensing aspect to that. There's permits obviously that are going to be involved in that too. So there's actually a lot of new things that where we might be spending even more money with BS&A to try to add some of those things where something like this, that's more of an open ecosystem, might actually work well. So, I guess anybody have any questions about that? Otherwise,
I got a question, Matt.
Sure.
Did did you get an input from the end users? Like Evelyn and
I did.
Kim
I talked with Kim about it a little bit actually this afternoon. Again, and then I had talked with Evelyn about it a couple different times now. And I think, like with anything, I think even for me, there's a hesitation to say, well, is this exactly what we want to do? And I think my goal will probably be to have another call with them and say, hey, you showed me this and I liked what you did. Could we set another time and give a chance for Kim and Evelyn to actually get a good look at what it is we'd be working with, and then determine, do they feel comfortable with something like this, or, is it something where they're going, I've got concerns, something
I
like
want to
that.
make sure that I want to make sure whatever changes we need to make, in the software, whatever,
Yeah,
that employees are going to be very comfortable to use it
sure.
and actually as comfortable as what they're using now. I
Yeah,
don't
and
want
that,
to push stuff at them and they'll be having issues with training and all kinds of stuff.
no, and that's what I, one of the things I told them about, I told them I'd bring it to you guys and show you what they were offering. I said, but, my big concern obviously is that, we're going to be dealing with this every day. And
Yeah, see, I don't deal with it. None of the council member is going to use it. So what
no,
concerns me are employees.
exactly. And I don't want to pursue a path where, maybe on paper it looks like a good plan, but Evelyn runs into problems or Kim has issues. I think it's something where we have to really fully vet this ahead of time, and I want to do that in the next few weeks to really get a chance for Kim and Evelyn to sit down. But figured I'd let you guys know there is a possibility that, you know, if everybody liked it, we could look at this and they could actually run side by side with BSNA for a little while and allow us to do this, you know, incrementally if we thought it was a good idea. But, you know, we'll have, my plan again is to have Kim and Evelyn take a look at it, you know, get a demo of it. And then, you know, if it does look like something we like, you know, we'll bring it back up for you guys as an agenda item at a future meeting.
Okay. Another thing was not in your report, I want to just to touch base with you on, and is the, I know it's the time of the year, like maybe within a month or so, I like to see job performance reviews. I don't know how you, if you
Yes.
do them or
Yeah,
or
we don't-
thinking
yeah,
about it or whatever.
Yeah, we normally do those right around the end of April to kind of coincide, or excuse me, February, sorry, to coincide
Okay.
with kind of the end of the year. I mean, department heads, I know Jimmy would normally look at his staff, Chief would normally look at his. I mean, I think getting started right now wouldn't be a bad idea. So, you know, we'll try to get all of that done here in the month of February, and then we'll look to probably what I'll do. I don't think we did one last year. I'll leave it up to you guys, but whether we look at it at March or April, I'd like to do a review of myself with you guys
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
So
that's,
get some
yeah.
feedback from you guys.
We do it, yeah, just we'll give you, you know, maybe at the end, middle March, end of March, something like that.
Okay, I'll
You
get
can
to,
send the paperwork to us and then we'll, I'm hoping that we're gonna get to meet in person because I'm really getting tired of meeting and like this, you know, to be honest with you.
I
So
hear
we
you.
can talk more. This is getting old with this virtual thing. But just
Yes.
let you know, send us the paperwork, you know, like in 3 weeks or whatever, middle of March.
Okay.
Or or at the beginning of March, and we have the council members at least to think about how they're gonna approach that.
Yeah, probably what we can do is for the March meeting, I'll get a, you know, we've done a few of these in the past. We'll pull together kind of a tentative, here's the village manager review forms. I'll put them together and have you guys take a look at them at the March meeting and see if you like that. And if you do, then, you know, we can give you guys the time to fill that out and then talk about them again at the April meeting,
Okay,
if that works.
good. Yeah, that should be okay. Next item on the agenda is the public, we're gonna need them to go the public hearing for fiscal year 2022 budget.
Yep.
So need a motion to open a public hearing.
I'll make the motion to open the public hearing.
Okay, I need a second, please.
I'll second that.
So is that trustee Benson, trustee Varan, is that what it is, or me? Can't call. Okay. So, so the meeting is open for, the public hearing is open for the public, so if there is anybody from the public wants to make any comments.
Yeah,
And the
so, yeah, again, if you are a member of the public and want to make a public comment on the budget, feel free to raise your hand, whether that's the button or pushing *9 on your phone, and you'd be given the floor to address the council on the budget. I don't see anything, Ali.
Yes, okay, so just make sure you get who made the motion and who seconded that, so just let you know, I hear a couple of people talking.
Yeah, Kim, do you have the motion and the second for the opening of the public hearing?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. Kim. Okay, if there's no comments from the public, then I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Okay, trustee Varani, second.
I'll second.
Trustee Jackson, all in favor, say aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
thank-
Aye.
Some noise, I hear some noise. All right, next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Council appointments.
so the council appointments, we presented these during the January meeting. So it's the same exact same exact appointments that we had listed then. I believe Ali and I talked and we did go ahead and actually do a motion to approve those appointments last year. So we decided to go ahead and do that same thing again this year. So again, everything's the same. Now, the one thing I did change on here, or I guess I forgot, my fault. The one thing I will note is that Harvey Butte has resigned his position as the village representative for the Hamilton QR and Fire Board. So I forgot to list it as open there, but we will have to fill that position in the future. But I mean, I think we just found out about that a week ago, so we'll have a little bit of time to get a candidate ready. The plan will be to have something at the March meeting, but
Yeah,
otherwise,
Matt, I think, Matt, I talked to Charlene. I don't know if she agrees to it or not, and I would like for her to fill that spot if she's okay with that.
okay.
Are you okay, Charlene? Or you want me?
I will get back with you, Ollie, on that.
All right, sorry, but okay. I was,
I know.
because I
I'm-
would like to do it I want to do it myself, but my schedule will not really.
Well,
You
and
know, it's
quite
hard for-
frankly, you know, I mean, the one thing I'll mention, you know, with respect to that is if you look at the makeup of the fire board, you know, the township representatives, you know, there's myself, and then you would also have Kevin Kuzmak, who's the township supervisor,
Oh,
Doc.
I know, yeah.
So I mean, having having a member of the municipal board isn't, you know, an issue at all. I think it actually can be helpful. So
I was actually gonna, because since you have two, you know, the supervisor of the township supervisors and, you know, Hamilton, I thought maybe
Sure.
I'll do it, but you know, my schedule really does not, I'm having a hard time with my schedule, you know, so.
that's fine. I mean, we can always get that.
We-
You know, my
yeah.
I guess what we could do is approve the appointments we have now for this, and then we'll finish that the QR and fire appointment. We can do that in March.
All right. So let's need a motion to approve that council appointments as presented.
I move
I'll make a
to,
motion.
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I'll make the motion to approve the appointments.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
Thanks. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Just let you know, the invitation is open. Maybe some council, if there any council member is interested in doing that, I could use whoever wants to participate. Just let me know or have Matt know. Just let you know that.
Yep, just let me know. We'll get it in there.
Yeah, okay. Next item on the agenda is council rules of proceedings.
Yep, so this is also the same as what was discussed during the January meeting. We had a draft at that time. I didn't receive any correspondence or anything from the council on any requested changes or amendments. So what you guys have in front of you is exactly the same as what was talked about in the last meeting. And then again, the only thing that we changed versus the prior years, I'll scroll to it here, was this section on voting by telephone, except as permitted by Public Act 254 of 2020. I'm hoping that we can get away from these virtual meetings here shortly, so that's not an issue. But we did add that just to make sure we had that accounted for in the rules. But that was all that's changed from prior years.
All right. If there is no changes or no questions, or I need a motion to approve the council rules of proceedings.
I have something simple, actually.
Go ahead.
If in Article 2, on the third page, it's about attendance. In
Okay.
section F, item 2B, it talks about our governor and refers to him. I think we should just take out the words to him, since it's obvious our governor is not a man.
That's a good catch. Okay. Or just say to the governor, whoever, maybe we don't know, you know, but yeah.
Yeah, I think if we just take out to him, it would work.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Yep, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Okay. That would be as amended then.
That's correct. So I need a. Did we make anybody made a motion? I lost track of that. Matt?
I don't think so. somebody's be welcome to make a motion to approve with the amendment.
Yes, is anyone make a motion for that?
I make a motion to approve the documents as presented with the amendment.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second that.
Is that trustee Pelfrey and trustee Varan? Is that what it is?
Yes.
Yeah.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, oppose, okay. Motion carries. I really apologize for the communication, sometimes a little bit cuts off here. The next item is the fiscal year 2022 budget.
Yep. So this is largely the
We already
same that
talked
you,
about it.
yeah, I'm not going to really go into
We
much.
already talked about it in length last time, so.
Yes, we did. So I'll just touch a couple things. We've made the document itself a little more interactive, so you can see these buttons, so you guys that have it and the public can easily kind of navigate around and figure out what they want to get to easily. The only structural change that came in, and it's part of our budget amendments that we'll talk about, I mentioned that we may look to transfer some money from streets to local roads this year instead of next year to try to make sure that we had the right fund balance in there. The CD that's in there now, I mean, that's already there, but we didn't want to have a negative cash balance plus the CD. So we proposed that as part of the budget amendments tonight. And that is actually then offset in the budget. So we had, I think it was $125,000. See if I can find it here. We had $125,000 transfer from streets. Let's see here. You can see now we're proposing 95. So essentially that budget amendment that's proposed tonight offsets the total amount that we had proposed in the budget. So that gets reduced by that amount. Other than that, it's all the same as what we talked about last month.
All right. There is no questions. I need a motion to approve the fiscal year 22 budget.
Yeah, and actually, I guess I can go. It'd be a resolution 2021-01.
Yes, thank you. I mean, my paperwork, okay, I
There we
can't
are.
see.
Motion to approve
Okay.
resolution 2021-01 would be what we
Okay, I
need.
need a motion to approve. Okay, thank you, Matt,
No problem.
because I don't have it in my agenda here. Okay. I need a motion to approve resolution 2021-01,
I'll approve.
which is fiscal year. Okay. Was it trustee Jackson?
Nope, Benson.
Okay, I'm sorry. So trustee
That's okay.
Benson, and who's second? Second? Any?
Second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I mean, there's Matt, who made the motion, who seconded the motion? You have it?
I didn't hear
couldn't
the
hear.
second.
Yeah, me too.
I'll second.
Okay, Jessica.
Okay. Jessica, okay, sorry, the voice is a little bit, so what I need to do, okay, I need a roll call in this, who made the motion, who seconded? Matt, you have it written down?
I have
Second.
I have Benson,
Okay,
and then Pelfrey.
okay, thank you. I need a roll call, please, Kim.
Trustee Benson,
Yes.
Trustee Gunther,
Yes.
Pro Tem Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Mead,
Yes.
Trustee Pelfrey,
Yes.
Trustee Varan,
Yes.
President Alwar.
Yes, all in favor, motion carries. All right, the next item on the agenda, new business, which is council meeting schedule.
Yep, so this will be another resolution. It'll be 2021-02.
Okay.
This should be a pretty familiar site for everybody. It's the same resolution we pass pretty much every year. The only thing I would touch on is obviously the two exceptions to the first meeting of each month would be September is obviously always different because the first Monday is always Labor Day, so we usually move that back a week. Last year we did it by a day, but this year I don't see any reason why to not keep it as is. And then for July, the 4th of July is actually on a Sunday. And the way that the holidays typically work with the village is that if the holiday falls on a Saturday, we observe it on the Friday. And if the holiday falls on the Sunday, the village would observe it on Monday. So because of that, we went ahead and proposed that we just move the meeting to July 12th. That way we don't have to worry about it. But if you guys would rather prefer a different date, we could look to do that. It's entirely up to you guys.
Any preference? 'Cause I personally have no objection. If there is no,
objection.
Yeah, I
Excuse
have no
me?
problem.
all right, thank you. Okay, if there is no questions, I need a motion to approve resolution 2021-2 Village of Decatur Council meeting schedule as presented.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Jackson, I need a second.
I'll second that.
Trustee Varane, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No, I think I may have, I apologize. I want to do this a roll call, please. It's a resolution. I gotta have a roll call. Sorry.
Trustee
Can
Benson,
you please have,
Yes.
trustee Gunther, trustee Gunther,
Yes.
Pro Tem Jackson,
Yes.
trustee Mead,
Yes.
trustee Pelfrey,
Yes.
trustee Varian,
Yes.
President Hour.
yes, all in favor, motion carries. The next item on the agenda is mutual police aid agreement.
Yeah, so many of you might recall that with Public Works, we signed a Public Works mutual aid agreement about 4 years ago. The idea of mutual aid agreements would be that they provide a framework for which other local governments are able to provide assistance to one another. So by having a formal agreement, we can spell out exactly what those terms are going to be, how that agreement takes effect, what responsibilities there are, and have it be in a transparent way that everybody knows exactly how this all works. So to my knowledge, we haven't done a new mutual police aid agreement in quite a while. It's been, I think, at least 10 years, if not more. So we looked into it, and I think we don't have any record of a prior agreement in place. And so we thought this would be a good time to be able to do that. So Chief put a lot of work into, as the chairman of the Chiefs Association, put a lot of work into finding a good agreement that would work for us and drafting that language to fit our local communities here in Van Buren County. And just to clarify a few things, much like we saw with the Public Works agreement, there's a lot of things that get clarified as to how it all works, who's responsible for costs if there's another agency that responds. So one of the big things is that how, when and if you respond to another participating agency. So in this case, the determination as to when or if to respond to another call for help would be up to that agency. So, if you've got the manpower to be able to go and help another community that's having some sort of a big issue, you're able to do that. If for some reason, though, whether it's staffing issues you're dealing with within your own community right at that moment, et cetera, if you're not able to respond, there's no commitment or obligation that you have to. Again, the idea here is that you'll help when you're able to do so. So what the agreement does do, again, is enable all of our departments within the county to assist each other when it may be necessary. And it's all really up to the determination of that department as well. So, for example, in Decatur, the chief, sergeant, et cetera, our department would determine if there was a need to call for help to on the mutual aid agreement itself. So intergovernmental agreements like this are pretty common. They do serve a good purpose. Obviously, there are things that can happen that would be beyond our control and could necessitate assistance. So you start thinking about, whether it's, riots or other major things that could come up where it could easily overwhelm, small departments. So having something like this where we have an ability to be able to call on other departments is helpful. So I commend Chief for his efforts on getting this ready to go and believe that signing onto the agreement is in the best interest of our agency as well as that of all of our county agencies. If a catastrophe of some sort comes up, it's nice to know that we have an ability to easily be able to call for assistance to other places, and then everybody knows exactly how that's going to work and what parameters are set as to how those responses would come up. So with this, Chief wanted me to let you guys know we need two things actually. So there'd be an approval of the mutual police aid agreement itself, as well as an authorization for the chief to sign the agreement on behalf of the Decatur Police Department.
Any
can see.
questions from the council members? Okay, if there is no questions, I need a motion to approve the mutual police aid agreement as presented and for the chief of police to sign this agreement.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. I'm sorry, I mean,
I
Matt,
believe that was trustee Gunther and trustee Jackson.
okay, trustee Gunter, trustee Jackson, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed,
Aye.
okay, motion carries. I apologize for my speakerphone, whatever, you know. It cuts off a little bit,
The joys of technology.
I know. That's why I like to be in person if I can, one of these days. Okay, next item is fiscal year 21 budget amendments.
So we're getting closer to the end of the fiscal year, and much like we do every year, we start looking at our budgeted activity and trying to determine where we're going to fall. As we talked about earlier this year, COVID-19 has had a pretty big impact across several departments, and we talked several times about what potential there could be for impacts to our budget. However, while we are going to see some amendments that are going to be due to COVID-19, I think we did do a really good job of looking at projects, prioritizing those projects and expenditures, and trying to do what we could to lessen the potential impact that we saw. So good examples are we did have, cleanings from ServPro every other week to try to make sure that we had sanitization efforts in place to comply with everything and for the safety of all of our staff. Hand sanitizer stations, masks, etc. Those were all expenditures that we hadn't necessarily anticipated, in December or January of last year. So, I think all things considered, we're in a pretty good place. I'll touch on where they're all going to be and then a little bit of info. So, we may need to look at another review for March. These are all of the ones that, I could see for now. We obviously still have the month of February. So if there is something else, we could look to do a final review for March, but I'm not anticipating any big ones. So for the general fund, we're proposing to increase the village council department and village hall departments. Primarily, this is due again to the costs related to COVID-19. That includes the software Zoom here that we're using for virtual webinars, the cleaning requirements and supplies that I talked about. And then for the general fund amendments, these are offset by reductions in other departments. So the net effect to the overall general fund budget is $0 because we're actually taking money from other general fund departments to move it towards this expense. So we are not increasing the overall budget. For local roads, we're proposing a transfer from streets. Again, this is partly due to a slight reduction we saw in Act 51 funding. This was related to COVID as well. We do have a CD in local roads right now in the amount of 100,000. So one option would be is we could just cash in that CD, but I think the idea of it still continuing to earn interest that we can then utilize for future projects makes more sense. As we talked about last year, the idea with streets is that, that funding can stay there unless it's needed somewhere else. So, with this, I think that it makes more sense to make sure we'll probably get another Act 51. We should have at least one, maybe two more Act 51 transfers that would come into local streets. So, it may not be a huge concern, but just to make sure that we don't end up, with a negative cash balance, but a positive balance on the CD, we're proposing we do part of that transfer that we were going to propose for next year, this year. I mean, fundamentally, the way it works is that streets or local roads get used on the same projects. So essentially, it's not an increased expenditure. It's just moving from one account to another. And looking into the years ahead, local roads is going to be a big driver for some of our local road projects here. So I think it makes sense to go ahead and just do that transfer now. And again, as with the budget, we reduce that transfer for next year because of the budget amendment that was being proposed here. So again, you get an increase in $30,000 for local roads, but a decrease in streets by that same amount. So the net effect across the fund, all of the village funds, is still zero in that regard. For the business loan fund, we're proposing to move $3,000 out of contingency into loan draw. This is due to the fact that we originally budgeted $15,000 for loans in fiscal year 22. But we did have, I think it was, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I think we had $7,000 in the contingency fund in case that changed. With the loan to Mormon Printing, that was for $18,000. So that's where that $3,000 transfer comes into play there. For the water fund, there are a few adjustments we're proposing. The first would be an increase to power pumping electric. We increased this account now for fiscal year 22, but the overall costs were comparatively higher in fiscal year 21 as they were in the year prior. There's probably a few factors at play here. More than likely, we're probably looking at an increased use of the generators driven by water demand. Obviously, with one of the effects of COVID is that everybody's been more at home. So in some cases, you're seeing increased water usage because people aren't traveling to work or aren't traveling out to restaurants, things like that. So we're seeing an increased use of our pumps and generators that support that. And so that's the biggest reason. The other thing with the water fund is we do have an increase for engineering. This is due to the work that was necessary to continue to prepare for the USDA funding application that we're finalizing this spring. We had anticipated a rate increase for the fiscal year 21 budget, but had yet to finalize the details. We'd completed that work in early calendar year 20. So while we were working on those rate increases, we hadn't necessarily acknowledged the fact that this is the avenue that we're going to take for USDA funding. But I think at the September meeting we had for September 2020, there was an item on the agenda to approve the cost for the USD application. So that came in. So now we just need to adjust the GL to account for that. And then finally, I alluded to it before, but the capital projects account, I'm proposing we're proposing we would increase that by 42,000. And again, the biggest reason for that would be is that was part of that Eagle project for County Road 668 for those 2 homes that are just outside the village. But we actually did get that reimbursement back already. We just have to get it put into the computer system. But that was actually for the full cost of that 42,000, both the tap fees that would be due for that, as well as the deposits for those accounts, and then a little bit extra for the work that Jimmy put into it. So while we're increasing for 42,000, the actual effect there would be that that is offset by the $42,000 refund we received from the state for the grant for the program. And then the final one would be the motor pool fund. So we're proposing an increase in the capital outlay for the PD and a reduction in the capital outlay for DPW. The reason for this primarily would be the WatchGuard system. We had planned on that originally to be completed during fiscal year 20. However, with the timing of the installation, and I believe COVID-19 started to come up around that early February timeframe, we ended up getting delayed. So in this particular instance, the work actually got completed the following year. And then with Public Works, we had originally had some costs set aside we were going to look at a skid steer loader, but we didn't find one in the right price range, etc. So we actually would reduce the capital outlay for Public Works by 25,000 and then increase the PD Public Works increase the PD capital outlay account by that same amount. So again, a scenario where the offset is actually 0 to the overall budget. So when you consider all of that with the budget amendments, and I'll scroll down here. I have a sheet here that kind of shows all of it. Now, of course, the total adjustments there are 71,000. Again, that's partly offset by the 29,000, or excuse me, the 42,000 that we got reimbursed by Eagle. So if you take that into account, the net effect here is 29,000, and that's going to be your engineering from the water fund and the extra amount we're setting aside for power pumping and electric for the increased electric usage from the water fund as well. Everything else is offset by, a reduction in the budget somewhere else.
Okay, any questions? Matt, I got a question for you.
Sure.
About the business loan.
Yeah.
I'm really confused. The contingency, the business loan, I mean, what does it fit in with that report, the monthly report we get for the business loans, for example, we have cash in hand is 82,000.
Yeah.
And it shows under credit is 18,000. I thought maybe that was Mormon's loan. And the end result is 64,777. So why would we take I mean, if we have money in the business loan fund, why are we taking something from contingency for a business loan fund?
Oh, well, I guess let me see here if I've got it. I'll see if I can pull up the fund here. Yeah, so you can see the total credits is 18,134.68. So that's a total amount that have been spent out of that fund for this year and leaving that 64,777.07. The reason for the budget amendment would be is that, and I'll kind of show you in our current budget, for example. So if I go to the loan fund here, 244, you can see that in a lot of cases, we'll have, so this is business loans. So we'll have like a loan draw amount. So this year we actually tried to increase that amount a little bit, with the idea that, well, after seeing what we saw the last couple of years, maybe we should increase that slightly. So you'd see the 20,000 is there. In the budget for fiscal year 21, this was 15. So and then there's a contingency amount here. So in fact, with the budget for fiscal year 21, this is 15 and there's, I think, 7,200 here. It doesn't change the actual cash, disposition. I mean, that 18,000 that you see in the cash summary was already, distributed to Mormon. The difference would be in just how it's reflected in the budget. So since this contingency is another department, what we have that for is in the case where there's a slight overage or something. So say somebody requests a loan, but it's a little more than we anticipated, but the loan committee and the council are okay with it. We have a little flexibility to do that. So that's all it is. It doesn't actually change the cash balances or anything like that at all. That stays.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm asking. Is so why can't you just use the cash balance to do that instead of going? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, we just a little bit with
we do.
I thought that's a different. I got it. I thought the contingency is different accounts. That's what I was thinking.
No, it's a different department, but it's all in the same fund. So
so it's
so we're just transferring that extra amount to cover the extra loan proceeds, since we only budgeted 15 and 18 was distributed.
The contingency under the business loan fund. That's what you're talking about.
Yep. It's the contingency department under the business loan fund itself. Yep.
Okay, I got it. All right. If there is no questions, I need a motion to approve the budget amendment as presented. Anybody wants to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the budget amendments as presented.
Trustee Jackson, need a second?
I'll second that.
Trustee Varan, we have a roll call, please, Kim.
Trustee Benson,
Yes.
Trustee Gunther,
Yes.
Pro Tem Jackson,
Yes.
Trustee Mead,
Yes.
Trustee Pelfrey,
Yes.
Trustee Varian,
Yes.
President Elwar.
Yes, all in favor, motion carries. The next item on the agenda, waste removal proposal.
Yeah, so we talked about this back in
Plus-
December. Our contract with Waste Management expires in August of this year. When we went back to 3 years ago, there was a question about whether we might look to explore what other providers might be able to offer or how this worked, but we didn't have a good RFP for waste removal services at that point. So we started trying to work on getting one ready, but we quickly realized that, for what we needed to clarify, we didn't have enough time to do that. So we ended up kind of renewing that contract for the final year with Waste Management. But this year, I think, when we take into account some of the challenges we've had, I know Evelyn, I, and Kim can all tell you, there's certainly been a few hiccups here and there. We had a couple different vendors actually reach out to us too and express interest in wanting to put a bid in. So I think it makes sense, if nothing else, I believe that for us, at least, exploring those options is the right move to make. I mean, there's nothing that says you can't, if Waste Management ends up being the best value in terms of cost and services that are offered, you can always stick with that. But if we take bids and say, you know, Republic Services or Bestway or any other company that's out there that, you know, could be an option, if somebody comes back with a compelling, you know, option for us, I think it would make sense for us and for the residents of the community to explore what we might see outside of that. So that's what I'm proposing here. You can see, I think I put a March 1st date on this, so we're looking to try to get this out relatively soon. We may start a little bit sooner than that, but the idea is to try to allot 45 days for vendors to be able to review what we're requesting. I think there's a lot in here that goes into exactly what we want to see, how that all works, you know, what our expectations are, and to make it very clear what we want to see in terms of the services that get offered here in the community. So, you know, I think this actually might give a little more clarity than what we had in prior years. And it allows us to really drive the narrative a little bit as to what we really want to see done. And a couple things in this that I think are helpful, should we end up looking at a change, is there's actually going to be a requirement here that if we do select a different vendor, that they participate in at least 2 public meetings. And of course, it wouldn't be part of our council, but we'd set two meetings, you know, leading up to the change, where people could come in and talk with the different vendors, ask about, you know, how does this work, how does that work? So to really try to help in terms of community engagement. And then most of the service is going to be about the same as we do now, but there is some clarifications on, you know, if somebody runs into a pickup issue, who's responsible? We want to, you know, if there's a problem that comes up, you know, this is one big one we don't see now. And I think it'll really come in handy is that, you know, if I'm looking at it right here under penalties, if there's a collection that is missed, if somebody spills materials, if there's leakage from a truck, if any residence has items that aren't picked up, here's a fee that could come into play. I think by having these things spelled out in advance, that then puts the onus on those carriers to realize that we're not going to tolerate issues that come up. I mean, unfortunately now we've run into a few of these things, and I don't really have an agreement where I can say, okay, Waste Management, you know, that's $500. You know, we kind of have to just say, well, you know, can you come back and deal with this? You know, I mean, I like having something clearly spelled out here that lets them know exactly what we expect, as well as detailing, if you don't do what's required, it may cost you money, and here's what we're going to do, you know. So I think that's the best way to do it. And then again, there's a lot of information here, but it really spells out exactly what we want to see and how it all will work. So you know, I think it'll be a really good setup. And then we have forms here where there's a letter to obviously the village president, and this comes to the council, and they'll fill out their information. There's questions as to, you know, what the rates would be for, you know, with this one, it would be looking at a 5-year term initially, and then 2 additional 5-year terms. So we would have them fill that information out. And then there's quite a few questions as to, you know, information about the company, how many years they've been in business, how they would perform the work, what equipment they're going to be using, etc. So I think it really gives us a great opportunity to be able to take a good look at everything. So I think it looked good. I mean, if you guys have any feedback, of course, let me know.
That's what I'm trying to understand. I want to know what the council think about this. Any opinions from the council? Any questions?
Good idea to shop around.
Okay. Any more
I did
questions?
have a question.
Go ahead.
In your recycling portion of the
Okay.
bid, is it something where, I know it says at a minimum, it's every other week, so bi-weekly. And I did notice, especially during the last year with COVID, my personal recycling has been up. I can fill up a recycling bin in a week with the extra packages and so forth delivered. Is there a way you can have 2 containers if it's bi-weekly, or is there an additional drop off at the, you know, at the township if people have extra?
That's a good question, actually. You know, I could look to modify this. I mean, I know, like with our current trash, we don't necessarily spell it out in this RFP, but most of the time we're going to meet directly with you know, the vendors here, and we could ask, I mean, like with waste management, one thing that came up is we said, if somebody wants to have an extra trash container, you know, how does that work? So we could look at a couple things. I mean, we could have them do pricing for if we did residential recycling every week, or we could also look to say, hey, you know, similar to what we do now, if somebody wants to have an additional trash or an additional recycling container, what are the costs going to be associated with that extra container? So like right now, a good example would be if you have trash, you know, it's the $14.58, I think is the base fee. And then it's like an extra $4 or something if you wanted to have an extra container. So it's usually a much smaller amount. Recycling is normally included with the packages. How we do it now is that recycling is just included with the overall fee. But I think there'd certainly be an avenue where we could say, well, you know, if somebody has more recycling, what would there be a cost to have an extra recycling container? Or, you know, could we do that and not see an extra fee? Because essentially we're promoting, you know, I think in good environmental habits.
Yeah, man, this came up in the past, you know,
Yeah.
when even including my household, we talked about, you know, even it came up with like we generate, like Trustee Benson said, I personally in my house we generate more recyclable than actually trash. And we talked about this few years ago about how about getting a bigger container, just like the trash container. How come we don't have two big, you know, two containers, not this, you know, this, you know, I think that may help a little bit, maybe not all the way, but at least it'll have a bigger container. And we talked about that before.
Yeah, and
So is
I
that
think that
possibility?
I do. I mean, I think that would be a great avenue potentially, is that, you know, we could actually negotiate that with them and say, hey, we want to have at least this size container. I mean, I think, I don't know if I'll look back through and see. I believe we had I don't think we had a specified size container requirement in here.
Yeah,
I think
I
with the
think
trash we
they
do,
specified that.
but
Yeah, this came up years ago.
say we can work with each provider, whether it's, you know, Waste Management or Public, you know, whoever it is, and say, you know, we're seeing an increase in, you know, need for recycling services on top of trash. You know, what options do we have to do that here? And then have that highlighted so that when we start looking at these, we can go over what those differences would be in terms of the options for
Yeah,
recycling.
I think they go to different container size because so they would, you know, so they can pick up the right container, but they could have a different color. you
Yeah.
know.
Yep. Either that or, you know, if they would do an option where you could have an extra container, I mean, that might work. I mean, there's a couple different
Yeah.
avenues, and, you know, knowing that, what we can do is as we start to have, I mean, I already know that with a couple of the big providers out there, that have called me and asked about this. And I said, well, you know, we're working on this. We'll probably have an RFP coming out soon. They asked specifically, you know, if they could set an appointment to come down and, you know, not just, you know, pick up the request, but, you know, to really get an idea of, okay, what are your pain points now? You know, what do you want to see, et cetera, you know, kind of meeting face to face to talk about this. So I can definitely convey that to them and, you know, make sure we get this squared away so that we can offer the best possible option for the residents of the community.
Okay. Okay, if there is no more questions, I need a motion to move to approve the waste removal RFP as presented. Request for proposal, I guess. I need a motion to, anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the RFP.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second that.
All right, who made the motion?
It was Trustee Gunther and then Trustee Mead.
Trustee Gunter, Trustee Mead, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, okay, motion carries. The next item on the agenda, the one I added is rental inspection. The reason I added this, it's a winter time. And I want to know, what are we doing with the rental inspections and where we at with the rental inspections? So, because it's a public safety, especially you know, I want to know what our process, because, you know, people, you making sure that they're complying with with the rules and with, like, for example, smoke alarms, carbon monoxide alarms, stuff like that. What, and who is doing it and how often we're doing it.
Yep. So actually right now we're working on trying to get the final steps in place here. I didn't get a chance today, but I'm gonna follow up with them tomorrow. Last week, I think it was Thursday or Friday, there was a meeting of the State Construction Board and Safe Built, the entity that we entered into an agreement with a while back now, is actually going to be responsible for that. So their plan was to get everything ready to go for the permitting process. So that would be building, mechanical, plumbing, and electrical. And then from there, work on getting that process here to the village, as well as getting our rental license program and code enforcement programs ready to go. So I know it's been a process and longer than what we had liked to see. I know Pawpaw is actually just finishing everything up here, or actually just finished everything up with Safe Built as well, and they've had a pretty good experience. So I think once we get everything in place, it'll go well. Now, from the fee schedule, the plan would be is that this spring we will start rental inspections. The way that it's going to work is going to be a little different than we had in years past. So I think it's been 2 years since we've had rental inspections on a regular basis from the time our last building inspector left. And then in that interim time, we looked at options and ended up working on the opportunity with Safe Built. And then now we've been waiting on everything with the state to get that finalized for the whole process that's going to be in terms of the building department. But with and I'll see if maybe I can just go to it here to show you with rental inspections. The change is going to be that they will be annual. So once we get everything squared away, everybody will be.
According to our ordinance, it is supposed to be annual, isn't it?
Yeah, and there is some reductions in fees depending on, if you have multiple units, in the same building, so for, rental apartments, for example, if you had 12 units, there's a reduction in the fees per unit for that. So
Yeah,
that helps. But
Matt,
yeah,
Matt,
Go
the
ahead.
concern I have right now is what are we supposed to do as a council, as a village, to make sure this process is taken care of as soon as possible, instead of just kicking the can I don't know what's going on, because if it takes 2 years or 3 years, whatever, and we don't do any of these things, what about the people who are renting places, and there is no requirement. I mean, I'm gonna say there is no oversight,
No, and that's
for making sure that.
no, and that's a great point. I mean, I think we've been more than patient. We'll say that. We have given Safe Built plenty of time to get this squared away. We had all of this stuff, paperwork and items submitted to them well in advance to get this all squared away.
What, Matt, what was our agreement with them? Do you recall? Did we give them a time? Did they promise to start it at a certain point?
I believe the way that the agreement was structured was it was set up to start as soon as we had all of the building permit processes taken care of. And so we've done that, the work on our end at least. We passed an ordinance that declared our intention to take over for electrical and plumbing inspections. We gave them all of the documentation they need for Construction Board of Appeals. I feel like we've held up our end of the bargain. I guess my feeling on it is this, is that I'll follow up with Safe Built later this week and make sure to find out, hey, are we good to go now? What was the disposition of everything after the meeting with the Construction Board of Appeals, or no, excuse me, State Board of Construction, I believe is what it's called. State Bureau of Construction, rather. And basically let them know we can't wait any longer. I don't have time to keep kicking the can down the road. I mean, if worse comes to worse, we'll cancel that agreement and go back to the system we had before, where we'll just hire somebody that's qualified to be a rental inspector.
That's exactly what I'm heading,
Yeah, I
because
mean,
they cannot help me, because I want to help. I want their help yesterday. I don't want it tomorrow. I don't want it next week.
No.
I don't want it next
No,
month.
and I think
I wanted it yesterday.
Yep, and I think the idea behind moving to a service like this was that it did enable us to do a lot more than what we had in the past. And, I think it gave us, a very consistent way so that, if somebody has a building related concern or code enforcement concern, there's a centralized source for that, that specializes in this. Some of the challenges we run into is that, it's really not a full-time job. So part of the reason we got into the situation with SafeBuilt was when we tried to advertise for this job, we had 2 people applied, and then both of them ended up withdrawing their name. Somebody said, if it's not full-time, I can't make it work. And somebody else said, nah, I got another opportunity that came up, so I'm not interested. So we ran into some struggles there. That's when we started looking at other service options and said, well, maybe there's a company that we could look at to contract this out, where we can expand our ability to do this. And then if they're doing this every day for multiple municipalities, then we wouldn't have this issue of, well, I'll be available, but next week, Friday,
Matt, I understand, but it's not working. That's my point.
No. And I think
working.
you're right. It needs to get to a point now where I'll follow up with them this week. And if they haven't gotten it done, then we'll
okay.
post
I need an answer by the next meeting.
Okay.
Where we're gonna go with this, because I'm getting impatient with.
No, and I understand. It's been long enough, and it'll be on the agenda for next month. If there's any changes that we have to make, and if we need to find a new inspector, we'll do that.
Yeah, and you may want to go to other communities, Lawton, Papa, whatever they use. Maybe we could combine services.
Yep, that's an option as well.
Okay. Any questions from the council about anything about this subject? All right, if there is no questions, I need to move on to a public comments. Anybody from the public out there wants to make the next item is public comments. Anybody?
Yep. So again, with public comments, push the raise your hand button if you're calling in, or excuse me, if you're on the computer, or if you are on a smartphone or tablet. If you're on your phone, you can hit *9, and that would also raise your hand. I'll give a couple minutes or a few minutes here, or a few seconds, to see if anybody has anything. Charles, okay, this is Charles Herman. Charles, I got you. You just have to unmute yourself. You can go when you're ready.
Okay, Charles. Yeah. Got 3 minutes, Charles, to give us public comments, please. Are you there, Charles?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it. I'd like to thank everybody for their time this evening. I have something along the lines of new business. I apologize, I've never done this before, so I'm kind of just winging it. I've been listening to everything today and following along. I'm interested in getting an ordinance passed for golf carts to make the community golf cart friendly. What do I need to do to go about that?
We'll just have to have the council discuss it, I guess, and see where they want to go with that.
Is there any type of forms or paperwork, or do I need to put together like an addendum or something?
I think we just have to talk about it as a council, maybe put on an agenda, and talk about it and see what are the people what they think,
Okay. I noticed some of our surrounding.
And then we'll probably we'd have to get the police chief involved too. We have to have his opinion on that, because I mean, who's gonna be driving these cars, golf carts, whatever you're talking about. You have to have a license. We have to address all these issues,
Absolutely. A lot of the surrounding communities have golf cart policies in place. South Haven and some of the other local ones. So I have started to review some of their paperwork and stuff, but I totally understand about meeting with the police and talking with them and trying to get some rules and regulations into place would be totally understandable and of course expected. So I would like to present, though, like I said, if a discussion to begin about golf cart community.
Yeah, we could entertain that idea.
All right. I thank you guys for your time today. Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
That is all I
Any
see
any
for,
other public comments?
I don't see any. And, you know, I did talk with Chief about this today. If you guys would like, there are some good examples around the around local communities of golf cart ordinances. I know we talked about it briefly about a year ago. If you guys would like, I can come up with some samples and we could at least talk about it as you know, at least an overview at the next meeting if you'd prefer. Just let me know.
Okay, that would be good. The reason I think maybe we need to do that, in my opinion, because it looks like it's not regulated right now in the village, and I see golf carts in summertime all over the place without sometimes even no lights, nothing, and kids actually, it's small kids that drive on golf carts around the neighborhoods. And we talked about that before. We had the complaints, you know, and all that. And I think it's probably we need to regulate that, and we have making sure that whoever is gets behind the wheel of a golf cart, at least they have at least at the age of like when you have to have a driver license too for you to do that.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
don't
I
want
think,
little
and
kids
I think
driving golf cart.
the idea would be, and we've talked to a couple other communities out there, and basically the notion would be is that by passing an ordinance, you know, you can set up a system where we're going to permit it under these circumstances, and then you can restrict it. So you could say, okay, you can be on a golf cart. It has to have these things to be legal. This is what's required to be a driver on a public street
Yeah,
with it. And
that's
then you can't go in these areas. You know, I mean, I think it's probably easier to come up with rules to say, here's how we can do this safely than to just outlaw it entirely. And you're running around punishing people. I mean, I think having a system where you pay for a registration and then, you know, annually, say it's like $25 or something, we can check out the golf cart,
yeah.
make
Let's
sure it
look.
works, you know.
We look into it and see what we come up with.
Okay, I'll start
All
to
right.
get some stuff together and put it on the agenda for next month.
I know it came up before, you know, the gentleman by the lake, you know, who lives by the lake, you know, one time he came in
Yes.
and talked about that too, so.
Yeah, it's been
Okay,
something that
next
has been
item on the
mentioned a few
agenda
times.
is, next item on the agenda is council comments. Anybody from the council? I'm gonna go by the list I have here. Trustee Benson, you have any comments?
Nope, I'm good.
I'm sorry. Okay, trustee Jackson,
Yep, I just wanted to thank Jimmy and the DPW. They made a real good attempt to fill the potholes on my street, and then Mother Nature intervened and took it all back out, but thank you guys for at least trying, Jimmy.
okay. Trustee Gunther,
I'm fine.
trustee Mead,
No.
trustee Pelfrey,
No comment.
trustee Varan.
Nope.
All right, and I don't have any comments. So the only comments, thank you everybody for participating. And everybody have a good night. Thank you. And now I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Trustee Mead, I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, trustee Varan, meeting adjourned. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, meeting adjourned. Thank you.